Yo, how's everyone doing? Here, slowly, fine, slowly getting better. Still heading through therapy and learning a lot more things. And something that's kind of interesting and that's been a good thing to ponder upon for the last few days is basically just love for the craft. And that is it's very vague on its own, but I do understand the sense um, that it kind of gets used in this particular situation. Let's say, not let's say, but let's affirm that for the last few years, okay, and if I look back through my stuff, like pre-college up to now, uh, and let's say post-college or college time, like when it came to that point, I just lost love for the craft. Something happened. A couple of things happened, like a series of events, a series of shit that, again, the whole economy and the shit life way, which I can say in improper terms, that were happening at home and in school, and this back and forth ping pong of, let's say, instability, because I would be using a lot more crude words. So a mix of that kind of drove me in my life into a different direction. And when I look back at the time where I used to just free flow when it comes to artwork, not taking necessarily tutorials, I knew I started picking up how to draw manga around college. But before it was basically other types of books, back to the basics and all that kind of stuff. And then just free flowing, having colored pencils, just trying things out with character concept, and just being loose. It was really loose, and I was getting some mileage with pencil control, a lot of mileage. But around that time, a couple of things happened in my life, and once I hit college, again with the backward mentality that I had when it came to studies. Gotta love the way parents, or my parents, were pushing this kind of shit. Well, it drove me off the path of loving the craft and turned it into something else. It turned it into, how do I say, a job in a sense, or it turned it into. It really turned it into something else. It wasn't how I loved the craft before, and this kind of continued for a large amount of years. It's one of the reasons, and that's been something quite interesting to push through with therapy. It's one of the reasons why I don't really hold any kind of sketchbooks, and that I usually draw on individual sheets and such, and then move away to the next thing. It's mostly because even now I look at my sketchbook, like I have one for extra stage, I have one for ideas, I have one. It's all fucking separated, and most of them aren't complete because I keep bouncing from one thing to another instead of simply having fun and showing some love for the craft and then just trying things out. Got into this idea or mentality of there has to be a standard, there has to be this, there has to be that, because that's the way I usually study things. And this has been corrosive to a large degree, mostly for the aspect of loving the craft. Of course, there are quote unquote standards when it comes to good artwork. Let's say if you look at certain, and I tell you to Google search a specific how to draw manga book and tell you no, that's not acceptable. Uh, when you were trying to get a job or something, Uh, so, but aside from that, you might as well free flow, learn the basics, and then just do this healthy back and forth. But it's something that I lost throughout the years, and even my anatomy teacher, we had a bit of a talk about that because she was the first real teacher I had when it came to art, and she did notice a shift as well. And it, practically nothing has to do with a specific event that happened in college. No, no, that was before entering college. So it's finding like this right now, knowing all this. Okay, whatever happened in the past happened in the past, and hell, even up to a certain degree, I have found a way to forgive my parents because let's be real. I'm viewing this point from the point of view of person in the future that has knowledge, that has read documentary and checked out info on parenting and such, and just to understand the psychology behind it all. So they didn't have that. They didn't even have internet back at that point. So I can kind of see or say, reluctantly, of course, but I can kind of say, okay, you guys did not have this knowledge. You guys did not have access to this knowledge. And in the situation you were at, I can kind of see, in quotation, how you may have thought that this could work. Of course, common sense is lost because let's be real. Yet at the same time, I can still be glad that they didn't, when things got rough, that they didn't just give up. Because it's way too often that we hear about parents giving up on their children and blah, blah, blah. So that's one way I can cope with it, okay? That's one way to cope with it. And coping tones down the hate, tones down the paranoia in a sense. And all this really helps balance out the mind, because right now I can just have fun, I can just not get into this ball of hate because of the past, but I can just try to move forward. And when it comes to enjoying the craft, I can just try stuff. Like right now, okay, I'm not a big fan of how I did her face. Like, I'm really not, because I added an angle. But no sweat, man. No sweat. There's always more canvas. I do have to work on something with the pressure settings. What's the trick? No. Ah, crap. Let's go. But yeah, like, just have a bit more patience when it comes to this sort of things. Things are a bit more alleviated now that I fully understand that, and I'm not into this weird stress for time, this weird paranoia for time. It's things are just much more alleviated now, and I can start at least working back on getting back my passion for the craft, because I still want to perform. I still want to go further. I've learned, even if I was in this garbage mode, I've still learned a lot, and I can still use this to go further into my own craft. So having good balance between warming up, especially warming up in those big sketchbooks. I recently got a good one because of a price match, not a store policy / price match, and now I have 2 big sketchbooks. I might as well go in and draw, use all the moves, just go for it. No, let's say, self-restrictions, no quote-unquote standards, and even what my mind could call standards could all be bullshit when it comes to drawing, and that means using certain types of lines. It's quite fascinating how your history or your psyche can affect what you do, and I'm kind of glad that I was able to just get that information brought up in my face, so that I can start rebuilding, not saying relearning, but relearning is part of it, going back to the basics and looking back at the old garbage that the old stuff that I've done before, and then try to extract the essence from it, not the bad drawing because man, some of the shit I didn't even know how to properly construct a head, and even now I want to learn even more about the head. Okay, but there was a kind of essence to it. There was a kind of love that was pushed into that work. As geeky as this shit was, because you know, who does Valkyrie profile fan fictions nowadays, right? Fan fiction comics, because Square Enix killed the franchise. Um, but it was a lot of fun, you know. I even had this. Of course, Dragon Ball was a big influence back then, so I want to be Dragon Ball type of comic involving my friends, and I really didn't care about how it looked. I just wanted to push a story. So I guess part of at that time that was a part of the love I had for the craft. You know, now I like different kinds of imagery, different kind of styles, different kind of stuff. So my work may be inconsistent and jumbled, yet if I, you know, focus on my love for the craft, then I'll draw, and then get all the bad drawings out of the way, you know, just get the fear out of the way. No more fear, you know, just pushing it elsewhere. And what's gonna come up after all these, let's say 20,000 drawings, you know, from sketch to thumbnails to iterations to inking, like what's gonna come up out of this is a part of it is gonna be or a part of it is going to be confidence, and another part is going to be consistency into what I like doing and what I want to go on to do further. Now, where all that becomes a bit of a pinch for me is that one, I'm working with certain clients, so I don't want to radically change certain things unless I'm able to cope with changing many parts of the work. And then two, there's always this thought when you work with a client that they're hiring you for a specific style, okay? And that's something I'm kind of stuck in my head, you know? That's something I'm gonna have to work with, in a sense, or either get rid of that thought by basically nailing down who I am on paper, you know? And again, through thousands and thousands of drawings, eventually it's gonna settle down. There's gonna be a pattern. There's gonna be something, you know? And that's using all the fucking moves, guys. Just getting that love back for it, you know? Doing this back and forth between all your weapons. And just trying things out. Of course, as soon as as soon as everything is nailed down, I'm still gonna have this back and forth between studying and then trying to do my own thing. Study, again, knowledge is power. So the more studies I do, the more I'll understand and learn from this world, in a sense. And when I mean study, it could go from tutorials or to just go outside and join people doing their own thing. You know, people walking, observing movements, observing interactions and all that. So it's just, I don't know, I'm feeling alleviated right now. And I guess the same could happen, or I could say the same for my issue with digital work. I just need to try stuff out. Try it all, okay? I've noticed I was not as trashy as I thought when it comes to inking and coloring digitally, and that some of that work turns out much better than when I try to color my pencils in. So like there's no absolutes, you know, there's just no absolutes, and looking back at old work really helps putting things into perspective, and then looking back at my life just helped the job as well. So hey, my parents are getting off scot-free for now. Oh, but let me tell you, the amount of things that I could literally cuss them out on, just in a pure common sense aspect of things, is ridiculous. But hey, what's done is done, alright? And I guess that's a good analogy to let certain things go so that you can progress with your own life. As subconscious as it is, it's still affecting me to a certain degree, and fuck it, let the healing works. So love for the craft, people. Just have unconditional love for the craft, okay? Not comparing yourself to others as per se, but having this journey of drawing what you like, drawing how you like it, searching for how you can get stuff that you like on paper, and trying to do it over and over, you know, or trying to push it further, you know, like having this love for it. That's a huge key. That's a determining factor in how far you're gonna go for it, you know. If you're not willing to experiment, if you're not willing to push certain drawings further, if you're not willing to push your abilities further, then you're gonna remain stuck, you know. And that could go from trying new techniques, that could go from using different types of reference and studying different types of model. Like, you gotta have that trill. What a trill, you know, just snake eater right there. So I guess I'm gonna leave you guys with this. I am preparing a good a good version of the tips, like a very good video for the tips, and I'm hoping I'll be done with editing next week, because this is another very important facet of love for the work. It's an aspect where you're gonna have to look at yourself, or look at your work, in a very interesting critical eye. So and I do want to have like a little setup for you guys, so I'm hoping I can get it done by next week. And I also want to talk about, you know, giving yourself schedule, but not twisting your arm schedule, you know, giving yourself achievable deadlines and such, you know, and somewhat keeping yourself in check, because this is something I am dealing through, or I have to struggle with nowadays. And I did come up with a few little things that could help, but hey, we could always start a discussion on that. And hell, we can always start a discussion on this too. If you had this kind of experience, if you felt like you lost a part of your creative talent, drawing or whatever, because of life incident, and you know, you don't want to talk about the incident directly, that's all fine. But just if you've had that kind of thing happen before, you know, just take a shout out, talk a bit about your experience, and you're not really forced to go into details, because, you know, this is I fully understand if some people don't want to go into those details. I can understand. I haven't gone into those details, but I know I'm gonna go into this with you guys at one point. I just need to continue therapy, continue understanding, continue searching, and psychology, guys. Like, there's a lot of things, a lot of things that you can just break out, or break to finally get to another level. Man, this digital thing starting to get to a point. What's funny is I'm still not doing full construction. That's something I'll need to investigate. What happens if I use full construction? When do I set down full construction? You know, the questions just pop in, and it's bloody great, because if you're able to answer those questions, then, and you know, you do it rationally. You don't bullshit yourself. You do it rationally, or else you're gonna have to face yourself a couple of weeks later. But if you answer your questions, then you basically find you're making progress. You're getting to another level, and hell, if you're able to get help from other people, even better, because some people may have the answers way ahead of time. Anyway, I'm over time, guys. I am gone. More drawings on paper. Finally got the stand, so again, I'll see what I can do to do some editing much faster. Thanks again, guys, for your support. There shall be more stuff. The HQ is still it's running a tad bit slow. There's no business interference yet, so I'll see you guys later.